Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly. As we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Better late than never. It is Rewind-A-Dynamite. John Pollock and Wai Ting here with you on Wednesday night. A half hour late, but you know what? At least we're here.
It happens sometimes. I guess we've been on a pretty good run of starting these like 5 minutes after these things go off the air. But yeah, today kind of out of our control.
Yeah, it seemed that there were many technical issues attached to Triller tonight. So for people with AEW Plus, it seemed that tonight was a real battle to try and watch tonight's edition of Dynamite. And I was about ready to throw in the towel by about 8:45 when I could not possibly get the show running.
Yeah, we just kept getting logged out. So Triller allows you to have two devices, I believe, signed on at once, and there are only two people here, and people who don't even have that were complaining in the chat. People on Twitter complaining about issues where they're getting logged out and having to repeatedly sign back on every 5 minutes or so. So it seemed like there were some issues, and that's really rare because I usually have no issues with that service.
Well, here we are to chat about Dynamite, to chat about some news items. The G1 is ticking down. We're down to 3 final shows, and today, Wai Ting, this is Wai doing double duty again on a Wednesday, as he has a show up with Kate from Montreal, going through today's final B-block round-robin matches, where you did get a bit of a reprieve, 4 matches to go through today, and now we are down to the Sensational 6. Wai.
Is that what we're calling it?
Sure.
Not the Sweet 16, the Sensational 6. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I'll take it. Sure. Yeah, we're down to 6. Very exciting.
All right. It's
anything else do you want to say? It's a whole topic in the news I see here.
Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Okay.
But all of that can be found postwrestlingcafe.com, and we have shows coming out Thursday. Wai and I will be doing the quarterfinals. Then I will be with Karen for a free show on Saturday, going through the semifinals, and then for Cafe members, the final will be covered Sunday with Bruce Lord, Karen Peterson, and WH Park. And then that will be it for G1 2024.
Yeah, and those of you guys looking for updates on our G1 contest, Chris Angler is withholding the results after this evening's final block matches so that we can do a big dramatic reveal, I believe, on the Monday after the G1 finals are set. So tune in for that on Monday, and you'll find out who won this year's predictions contest.
On that note, we're going to dive into the news as we're already late tonight. We're going to start off the unfortunate news, the passing of a Dennis Brent, who was somebody that had a lot of interesting roles within the industry over numerous decades. He was involved in his own software company, and because of he was kind of right at the beginning stages when Macintosh put out like its first computer, and he learned like desktop publishing. And there was a chance meeting he had in Texas with William Moody, who would become, or was at the time, Percy Pringle, who was running the programs for World Class Championship Wrestling. And Dennis Brent kind of just pitched himself to Percy Pringle that, hey, we could do this for a much more affordable amount and saving you a lot of time. And to make a long story short, that was his entry into the industry, handling the programs for World Class. And then he would go on to do the programs for Mid-South. When Jim Crockett Promotions was sold to Turner, he was then hired as its head of publishing. And that job in WCW led to work with the 900 hotlines. And that was, in the pre-internet world, that was a major money generator for people, having these 1-900 lines and having various personalities, including Jim Ross and later Gene Okerlund and many others that were attached to the WCW 1-900, 909, 9900, which the poor guy that had to go on all the archives, if you go back, for WCW programming and even WWF programming, and they've blurred out the hotline numbers.
Yeah, or they list in fine print, number may not be active.
Man, like they really had to have felt we need to cover ourselves with this, because that seems like the most mundane checking of all of these hours of tapes to blur out the hotline because someone might call it by mistake.
Well, I wonder if those numbers are adopted by anything else, and I guess you can never trust a 1-900 number to be something that's safe for children. So,
well, he was in charge of that and stayed in WCW until 1994, and he was, his closest friend in the industry was Jim Ross. And when Jim Ross was heading up talent relations in WWF, he brought Dennis Brent into the company in 98, right as the company is gaining momentum. They're on fire with the Austin period. And Dennis Brent was in charge of lining up personal appearances for talent. He worked in the magazine division when they had WWF magazine. They had Raw magazine. He was a major contributor there and was also the writer of Steve Austin's biography that they put out when they had to deal with Simon and Schuster. And that ended up being a New York Times bestselling, or made the New York Times bestselling list. And sadly, he was diagnosed with MS in 2006. So for the last 18 years has been battling, or had been battling, MS. He was honored by the Cauliflower Alley Club back in 2015 and passed away last Sunday, but had been married since 1978. So leaves behind a wife, Lynn. So our thoughts with Dennis Brent, who I'm sure he is somebody that had a lot of interesting roles within the industry, from kind of just the side of like the promotions side of it, that for someone that was so heavily involved there, I would have loved to have heard more from him about a lot of those roles he held that I'm sure were very fascinating ones to hold in multiple companies over the years.
Not a name I've heard of until today. So thanks, John, for shedding some light, and thoughts go to his loved ones.
Randy Orton has confirmed that he has signed a new 5-year contract with WWE. Fightful Select was the first to report this, and Orton actually confirmed to the outlet Fightful that he had signed a 5-year deal. That was the length that he confirmed to them, and then he also did a separate interview confirming this. So this deal, which, I mean, first of all, do you expect Randy Orton to be wrestling more than 5 matches a year by the time he is 49 years old when this contract will expire? Is this man going to be wrestling over these 5 years? Okay, at a minimum of, I'll put the minimum at like 5 matches a year.
I'm curious. Well, how many did he wrestle last year?
Well, last year he didn't wrestle because of the back injury. So,
okay, the last time he was healthy, what was his?
I mean, he's
output?
Like outside of like, it's been like well over a decade, I think, since he had like a wellness suspension or anything. But the only thing, it were injuries that held him up, like shoulder injuries and stuff like that. But I mean, he certainly had his share of injuries, but he's been going at it from, he did have, like, over this last decade, he's had a bit of a reduced schedule, but still working like pretty consistently.
Doing a lot of tags with Riddle, of course, up until that point. You're predicting 5 a year from this point forward?
No. I'm saying by year 5 of this contract, will he still be doing at least 5 matches per year? Do you expect him to be in?
I'm going to take the over.
Not retired by the end of this contract.
I don't expect him to be retired. No, making the money that I'm sure he'll be able to make even at age 49.
Well, he will be 49 by the end of this deal. He's 44 right now.
That's very young in wrestling years, and provided his body stays healthy, maybe.
Will he still have these abs at 49? What's your prediction?
I predict he'll have 5 more abs by the time he's 49. An odd number, yeah. He'll have 5 more on top of this. He'll have abs, just all on his back.
One for each year he sees through of this contract.
Yeah.
Those are some probably 7-figure abs then.
I think he'll be an ab per match he will gain.
Oh, so. Okay.
I feel like he'll be wrestling more than 5. Who knows? Science is incredible these days.
He signed with the company when he was 19 years old in 2000. Like, that's remarkable that he's going to pretty much have an uninterrupted, like, almost 30 years by the time this contract is up. Like, there was a period where it was not out of the realm of possibility this guy could get fired, but it was for behavioral issues, not so much because they were giving up on him. I guess in some ways they were giving up on him, but not because of the talent. And during that time, like, we can talk about guys like Shawn Michaels or Undertaker that's had these long tenures with the company, but with like gigantic breaks, or they'd come back once a year or something like that. Like this guy, up until the back injury, like that was the longest period. And again, it was like, you know, he's had his laundry list of injuries, but I mean, this guy has been going at it for like, this is 25 years of this guy in this company.
It really is quite incredible when you just kind of look at it contextually like that. But I think he's definitely benefited from being somebody, first of all, who's incredibly talented, somebody who I think seems incredibly well respected by anybody who's ever wrestled with him. Now, there were plenty of, I think, you know, by his own admission, behavioral issues that I think would have derailed, you know, the source of Gunther's promo this past Monday. You are one of the best, but you should have been the best. And I think we can, I feel safe to say that he's probably been a guy who was very much one of the handpicked by Vince, somebody who Vince absolutely seemed to like and want to give several second chances to. That probably helped his longevity throughout the years to get him to this place. But I mean, you know, the man's probably had to do quite a bit of maturing and self-discovery on his own as well. And he seemingly has managed to do that and has found himself to be in a very good veteran's position right now.
Let's chat a bit about today's G1 show, and we won't go too in depth on it because Wai and Kate did a great job of that today. But we do have our B block playoff picture after today. So 6 people were alive going into today's show, and first up, Hiroki Goto was knocked off by Hanare, losing to him. So that ended the the G in G1 stands for gone. Okay, that's where it
stands for good luck next year.
Yeah, that's it. Got to go. David Finlay clinched first place, beating El Phantasmo, so he gets the bye until Saturday. Konosuke Takeshita eliminated Ren Narita, and thus Takeshita advanced based off the tiebreaker, so he's into the playoff round. And then in the main event, Yota Tsuji defeated Jeff Cobb, and Tsuji gets the final playoff spot. So it is Takeshita against Yota Tsuji, winner facing David Finlay, and on the A block side, Great Okan takes on Shingo Takagi, and that winner faces Zack Sabre Jr. on Saturday. What did you think about the 3 advancing in today's B block?
Finlay, Takeshita, and Tsuji. So I you know, in the conversation I had with Kate on the post show, the biggest topic of conversation was the idea to not have Hiroki Goto take one of those spots, just given, I think, from what I could gather, him being one of the breakout guys, one of the guys who, you know, maybe just had the most relatability of any of the participants this year. The fact that he didn't happen to make it to the top 3 of his block seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity. But I think when we look at the top 3, everybody kind of has a reason to be there. You know, David Finlay, I think we know Gato loves to have just a big heel presence. And as leader of the War Dogs, leader of the Bullet Club, I think he'll probably be a major obstacle for whoever ends up you know, either making it to the finals of the B block or maybe even making it to the finals of the G1 itself. So I think he needs to be there. Takeshita was a bit of a surprise, maybe my biggest surprise to make it through, because he is not a New Japan Pro Wrestling talent. You can argue he's already gained enough value by looking as good as he did in the G1. So I don't know, was it a political favor perhaps, you know, for New Japan to want to put the AEW DDT guy over into the final blocks? I don't know, but certainly the match tomorrow I think will benefit from it. He's been the stand-up performer in all the G1, and Yota Tsuji I think continues to probably be my pick to win the B block. In fact, he's my pick to win the G1. So I think he needed to be in, and when you look at that, I mean, Goto doesn't really have a place.
Yeah, I think like when you break it down with the math, I mean, Goto had wins over Takeshita and Tsuji. So had he beaten Hanare, I mean, he essentially you would have had to rejig this. And I think just the way you're looking at it, it's either Takeshita or Goto. Like neither one to me are your long-term play, whereas Tsuji and David Finlay are. And you would have to like rejig this, like going back several matches, I think, to make that work to slot in Goto over Takeshita. And that's, you know, for a lot of times these things are locked in. I do think like the eyes are going to be on Yota Tsuji on these in these final 3 matches that he has, to have the performances of a lifetime, providing he has 3 matches, because I would say he is the favorite to win this and position this G1 as his springboard into a Wrestle Kingdom main event, and to be the anointed, like, of all the up and comers, like, this is the guy that we are putting everything behind. So I think it's paramount that Yota Tsuji have some of the matches of his life over the next couple of days. Because I'd go so far as to say I'd be pretty surprised if he is not there. And you've got Takeshita tomorrow, and then Finlay on Saturday, and then potentially, odds are Shingo or Zach in the final. And let's assume Zach, you have the opponents to have some of the 3 best matches of your career if you're Yota Tsuji.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big topics of discussion, because he's arguably been overshadowed by several other talents in this G1. Yet to really kind of like have, I would say, maybe a definitive performance that that's getting a lot of people buzzing. So we'll see if Tsuji can accomplish that in the next few matches.
All right, so Thursday, Wai and I are back. We are going to go through the quarterfinals, and we will see who is advancing to Saturday's semifinal, with Saturday and Sunday show at Sumo Hall. And those will be big shows as well, to see how well they perform in comparison to last year. I mean, these final 2 nights and those attendance figures are going to be a big part of kind of the narrative of this year's G1, and how well this tournament has peaked for those final 2 nights. Okay, next we have Yoshinari Ogawa has announced his retirement, and this is not out of nowhere. Like, he had this neck injury, but he just wrestled on August 4th, and the news came out from Noah that Ogawa is retiring. He is not doing a final match. He is not doing a retirement ceremony. He is not even doing a press conference. So if you were to just ask Siri, give me the pro wrestling retirement that is as far removed from what John Cena is doing next year, it's Yoshinari Ogawa, who is not even going to acknowledge this in front of a microphone, which I kind of respect. That I feel in a different sliding doors scenario, if I were to retire from wrestling, this would be the way I would want to go out, instead of a very long, year-long farewell tour that I would just be so uncomfortable with. So in that ways, I do feel I have a parallel path with Yoshinari Ogawa.
A man clearly who, I don't know, either doesn't love the attention or doesn't think the fanfare is necessary.
When really I said Siri, I triggered my phone. God damn. Sorry. Anyway.
They probably should have just picked like a less common name, I guess, although in that example you would have just said the less common name too. But this is a Steve Austin route, it's kind of badass when you think about it, like I care so little about all of this, I'm just going to fade away. But this seemed to be, well, obviously it was injury related, and do we know the severity of the injury? Obviously bad enough that he can't wrestle, but does it mean surgery? Does it mean it'll affect his life in any other way?
We don't know really any details on this. Again, he had just wrestled, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. So I'm hoping that at some point there will be some more. Obviously, it's serious enough, but let's also add the caveat here. He's 57 years old, and 57 in the sense that he debuted in September of 1985. Okay, he's had a 39-year career at 57. Okay, so he came up in the All Japan Dojo, and
you were asking if Randy Orton will be wrestling in 5 years' time.
Maybe he's like 44. I've got easily 13 more years left in me. But yeah, just some highlights of his career. Like, he came up in the All Japan Dojo, and I mean, it was just a who's who of talent that he was there in the heyday of All Japan with, all throughout the 80s and 90s, and was part of Tenryu's Revolution group, and then after that, joining Suruga-gun, and after Kawada left Super Generation Army, and they all formed Holy Demon Army, and so he was working tags, and he was like a mainstay in the junior heavyweight division all throughout the 90s, winning the junior heavyweight title on multiple occasions, and was actually in the midst of a nearly 2-year run when he vacated the belt to join everyone and go off to Noah. And, his mentor was Misawa, so he was a no-brainer that was going to be following them over there, and then worked the very first 2 Noah shows in its history and continued with the company all up until the present. And that's going through multiple ownership changes and going through Masawa's death in 2009 that you just have to imagine was enormously impactful on so many people. But I mean, Yoshinari Ogawa, especially when it comes to people in the locker room. But someone who was, I think, like, just always like a solid middle of the card worker that could be placed into all of these different roles, whether it was all these different makeshift teams that he had a long-standing team, not just with Masawa, but then Zack Sabre Jr. How many people get to say that? They had runs with tag partners Masawa and then Zack Sabre Jr. Within their careers. I mean, it is quite the career when you put it all down on paper. And this was when Zack Sabre Jr. was 10 on his first Noah excursion. But yeah, he is not someone that is going to be, I think, as celebrated as others. And it's sort of just the embarrassment of riches of the era he was, many eras that he was part of. But one of his big moments was after Noah was formed, and so much of it was centered around Jun Akiyama. Like, this was going to be the vehicle for Akiyama to get to that next level. And Masawa and Kobashi would sort of be the guys to help Akiyama get there. And Akiyama struggled in that role, and Akiyama dropped the title to Ogawa in April of 2002, and this was so out of the blue. No one viewed Ogawa in that role being GHC champion, and the way they did it was a 4-minute match where he just caught him with an inside cradle, and the crowd is just in shock that Ogawa wins the belt. And only held it for a few months because he lost it to Yoshihiro Takayama later that year, because Takayama had just come off the Don Fry fight, so they were looking to capitalize off of that. It was a very weird year when it came to Noah, which is kind of in between, the launch and before they get to the Kobashi reign in 2003, which really cements that title as the top prize in the industry for those couple of years and takes Noah to its peak years from, I'd say, 03 to 05, 06, and he was sort of in the middle there, but always a fixture on all of these Noah cards throughout the last 24 years. And yes, his final match just took place on August the 4th.
How do you think he'll spend his retirement?
Probably away from people. I read a lot into just the way he's handled his retirement. I honestly respect it. I think it's I do have an appreciation for the Jack Briscoe types who just decide one day, I'm done.
Yet it's making us want to talk about him more.
Well, maybe this is going to open up the
reverse psychology,
the floodgates, and it'll force Yoshinari Ogawa to hold a press conference. We will see. Raw on Monday returned to the USA Network, and they ended up beating last week's figures, so we got a new high since the night after WrestleMania with 1,890,000 viewers and a 0.63 in the demo. I also want to talk about the Canadian number because they did 333,700 viewers and about 129,000 in the 25 to 54 demo. Now, it is a guarantee that when Raw airs in Canada the same night as a Jays game, the Jays will always be number one. And they were number one in viewers, but this is one of the first times I can recall Raw beat the Jays in the demo, and it wasn't even all that close either. They did significantly above the Jays game in the demo. So that tells me that the LA Angels hardly the draw that you would expect. And there you have it. I actually had the game on as we were watching Raw on Monday night. So
are you actually invested in their season?
I really just kind of fell into it after going on the weekend. I had a really great time. So I'm now I'm getting into the Jays here in the final 6 weeks of the season as they're in dead last in their division. But they've been winning every game that I've been watching. So
what are you watching for to see if they can maintain that last place?
I want to see if they show some spark here in these last couple of weeks when it doesn't matter. They're like the El Fantasmo in the G1.
Looking for the moral victory, right?
Okay. SmackDown, by the way, in Canada on Friday, actually posted its lowest viewership since July of 2022. So we had a great Canadian number for Raw and a not so great one for SmackDown on Friday. And the last note here is NXT doing 617,000 viewers on Tuesday night and a 0.14 in the demo, which would be their lowest demo figure since the 4th of July last year. So audience was up in their return to USA, but the demo took a dive on this show, which peaked with the Chase U celebration as Andre Chase and Ridge Holland won the tag titles, ending the reign of Fraxium in another heated match. I mean, these Chase U matches, these people really get into, and I would say the Nathan Frazier and Axiom, I think that this is one of the more underrated tag teams maybe in the industry. These two are just, they're phenomenal, and I don't think they get enough credit as one of the best tag teams in the industry. I'm hoping this title loss is not the split of these two, because I think they're much stronger together than apart, but they have been teasing that for quite some time.
Well, it makes me wonder if their call-ups will involve the two of them as a team. I mean, they've always felt a bit like a makeshift team who are two guys more destined for singles careers, but I think as a package deal, coming onto the main roster as a tag team is not a bad way to enter.
As a team, you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that, as much as we kind of belabor DIY and sort of like they've really struggled in this run, but as separate entities, I think they would be struggling that much more. And you can put a very strong tag division together just with like some of your makeshift parts. And I think Frazier and Axiom coming up and doing a tag run and placing them with a DIY, like that could be some compelling stuff on SmackDown. So anyway, that was NXT. You can catch all of Up Next and get Braden and Davey's thoughts on the show. Time to get into Dynamite tonight from Norfolk, Virginia, the Chartway Arena. WrestleTix reporting 3,157 tickets distributed, and we are kicking things off with too many users exceeding limit, logged out. Oops, we have a problem. Buffering. Yes, this was that was the first 40 minutes of Dynamite for me. But then when we got the show going, thanks to Wai Ting, Mercedes Moné and Camille in her corner, taking on Hikaru Shida for the TBS Championship. And we start things off, and Moné turns an arm drag into the statement maker, and then Shida's up, hits a jumping knee into the corner, and then Camille blocks Shida on the floor, leading to a Meteora to the floor by Moné. Shida's Irish whipped into the corner, comes out with a missile drop kick, and then after a backstabber, Moné hits another Meteora, generating a 2 count, and tries for the Three Amigos. It's turned into a Falcon Arrow by Shida for a near fall, and the Katana is attempted, but Camille pulls Moné to safety, and Camille is knocked down with a baseball slide drop kick, and Camille gets attacked by the kendo stick. Mercedes yanks away the kendo stick and is warned by referee Stephon Smith as Camille drills Shida with her boot, and that leads to the Moneymaker, and Mercedes pins Shida in 10.5 minutes in what I thought was a pretty good opener that we had on a show that had some very good wrestling on this night.
I thought this was an enjoyable match. And to me, the thing that stood out the most was I was really impressed at how Shida continues to attract the crowd's favor to this extent by the end of this match, getting the types of reactions as a babyface as she does, despite like pretty sporadic appearances at this point and almost like no real active storyline heading into this match.
Her storyline every 6 months is, hey, did you forget about me?
Yeah. Every 6 months, she really wants to fight Britt Baker is essentially the storyline. I thought she was very good here, demonstrating her babyface fire, her hard hitting strikes, and
I thought Mercedes looked like, I thought this brought out one of her kind of better performances. Like the two, I just thought they clicked really well together.
Yeah, I think for Moné, the heel energy is there. It's very it's working really well. This thing she's got going on with Camille. I do feel like the spots involving Camille do feel a little bit cliche and very standard, and you can kind of see them coming from a mile away. But that's a lot of wrestling and a lot of these types of characters. The reactions are pretty good, but the angle, I guess we will talk about right now with Britt Baker.
So Britt Baker's music plays, and Camille goes up the ramp to get ready for her to come out, and then She spots a fan in the front row with the Sting mask on, like Baker had done previously. So Camille attacks this fan, who we never did learn the identity. I guess we're led to believe this was a legit fan, and now there's a lawsuit coming on Camille.
Sure, yeah. Don't show up in the front row wearing a Sting mask and a black hoodie.
That's right.
Yeah.
So instead, Britt comes through the crowd and enters from behind Mercedes, who turns around as Baker is putting on her glove, and she goes for the lockjaw, but it is stopped by Camille, who brings Moné to the floor, and Baker is left into the ring and looks at the titles and takes the TBS title. Because the strong title was not...
Oh, it's not being defended at All In.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, she doesn't care for it.
So Mercedes at least leaves with the title at All In, so that's guaranteed. And she hoisted up the title, the curse.
Yeah, the curse. Oh, has that proven to be true in every case?
You don't do the hero shot before the match.
Right. Yeah. I still think in this program, nothing's topped that first week where they had that interaction on the microphone. I think everything that's happened since then has been kind of standard. It hasn't really increased my interest for the match that much. So, this is a match really kind of that sells itself on paper, but I have been a little bit disappointed by the creative heading into it. Everything's been okay, but nothing's really taken things to a different level yet.
Then they showed the attack by Hangman Page on Jeff Jarrett after Dynamite went off the air last week. And we go to Renee with Team Jarrett and explains, Hangman doesn't like us, we don't like him. And before the promo can even end, Hangman jumps them and goes after Jarrett, starts brawling with Lethal into the arena, and we go right into the match between Page and Jay Lethal. And Lethal sends Page to the floor, and he hits 1 suicide dive, 2 suicide dives, 3 suicide dives, 4 suicide dives, and a 5th. I thought for sure he had to do the Bronson Reed 6, but he only went with 5. This was goddamn impressive.
Yeah, one of his usual spots. That I guess we haven't really seen.
Typically does like the Dynamite. 3. I can't recall him doing 5.
Well, the bar is set higher these days.
I guess so. This was really impressive. And then just like that, Page hits him with the dead eye on the edge of the apron. So I guess he, okay, I'm just going to absorb these. This was like rope-a-dope and thought, man, he must be gassed and I can get him here. These two did not let up, like pacing-wise. Lethal is tossed into the timekeeper's area. Lethal nearly gets him with a Maestral cradle and then the Lethal combination. Crowd is just cheering, and I think they were just, it wasn't even so much as like we're picking one guy over the other. They were just enjoying the match, even with like Hangman being like the home state guy here in Virginia. Page stops a figure 4, gets to the crossface, and then a dead eye is countered. Lethal tries again for the figure 4 and gets gouged in the eye, and Page hits a discus lariat, buckshot, pins him, 9 minutes and 32 seconds. I thought this was great for the time that they had with 9.5 minutes, and I just thought this was like the pace they started from the get-go and kind of just kept it up, and the audience, like, again, this was sort of just your setup match to get a win for Hangman, but it was a very competitive and fun match for the 9 minutes they had.
I totally found it very compelling as well. I thought Lethal took a beating on this one, not just his own activity and his own pace, but taking some pretty stiff shots with the dead eye on the apron and then that very high angle Death Valley driver. And I think that's all really adding to, I think, the mystique that Hangman Page is forming for himself as this, like, he really has done a great job reinventing himself as this sort of ultra aggressive, like pissed off, person who is very bitter at the world for cheering the guy who attempted to threaten his child, and who wouldn't be pissed off at that. I think he's done a good job of sort of like playing that lone wolf that is clearly a heel, but he doesn't like hanging out with the heels. He is just, at a different level of, I think, seriousness and mean. So I'm loving this current Hangman Page character.
And I'll say, Wade, based on where the other half of this program is going with Swerve, like, by the time they get to this match, like, Hangman's going to be the babyface in this thing. It's like this thing's come full circle at this point, I think.
We shall see the audience and the way they frame that story, but I do very much get the sense like Swerve will just go right back to being a very clear babyface by the time these two have their match, but we'll see.
Then they showed the highlight of MJF's match against Michael Oku from Rev Pro.
By the way, since when was Machine Head by Bush the theme song to All In?
Since last year.
Was last year as well?
They used it last year.
Oh, I totally forgot. Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
they
I thought
started
this was
using
new
it
for
tonight.
this
So
year.
obviously he got multi-year rights from Bush.
Is this maybe the forever theme of AEW's All In?
I'm guessing so, because I remember distinctly they used it last year.
Oh, I
And
totally forgot they used it last year.
they're using it
There
again
you
this
go.
year.
Well, happy that Mr. Rossdale's getting that check.
That's it. 1996, a big year. So then, so we see MJF facing Michael Oku at Rev Pro and hits him with the Tiger Driver 91, and then goes after Amira when Will Ospreay runs out to the aid of Oku, which kind of takes that story full circle with him now coming to the aid of Oku and Amira after their multi-year feud. But they didn't air the promo that Ospreay gave to the crowd where he told them that at Wembley Stadium he will do whatever it takes to win, with the implied reference that the Tiger Driver is now on the table for him. But they did not air that here, which to me is, unless they don't want that to be part of the story, to me that's a pretty key part there if Will Ospreay is willing to deliver the Tiger Driver, and that's what the whole match should be built around.
So the video that we saw this week kind of went against that. It was Ospreay continuing to, at least they were showing clips from, I think, Collision, where it was Ospreay continuing to express doubt about, or just like reluctance to use the move and being adamant about not using it. I have a sense maybe next week in Cardiff is when he will say, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, nice of them to, like this very much felt like this MJF Oku match very much felt like an in storyline, like relevant match to this particular storyline. And I think just kind of like helped give the match a bit of an international feel that just kind of, even exceeds the boundaries of AEW.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then they went to this incredible video. It was about 3 minutes in length. And they even got like commercial music to it, and it went through all of Takeshita's highlights of the G1, and then at the end it just flashed coming back all out. Did you not get...
I think you were.
Oh,
watching
sorry. This is in my mind. This is in my head. Sorry. We go to MJF Ospreay video, and this looks like it's right out of the Countdown special, and just them building up the match. MJF stating that Ospreay is not the best in the world, and showing highlights, including ones of MJF giving the Crossroads to Cody and the dog collar match with CM Punk among the highlights. And they'll have a face-to-face next week, which I hope is a lot more than a backstage interview with Renee.
I guess we'll see.
I think this needs to be a much bigger segment than our face-to-face tonight.
Technically, all that's really required is for them to be in the same room. They don't even have to be in the same room. They could just be looking at each other through satellite. But I have a feeling Ospreay and MJF will be in front of a live audience next week. Yeah, this was a great video. Really well done, as these usually are on these Countdown shows. But they were airing, I think, this at full length, I have to think. Like, this felt like a much more extended version.
Never air videos this long. Like, this was a show tonight where they were, like, I think sometimes they're way too concerned about being so fast-paced. And, like, tonight, if your minute by minutes are, like, you're building something bigger. You're trying to promote. And tonight, I thought this was one of their more effective shows at selling you on All In. Like we've kind of talked about, like, how much you have that feeling for the biggest show of the year. I thought after these 2 hours and the hype that they did, this felt like the big show of the year by the end of tonight. And
I think video packages go such a long way in trying to achieve that sort of feeling and to tell you a deeper story, to get the audience fully involved into what they're trying to sell for this pay-per-view. I'm really happy to see in 2 instances tonight, they gave you extended video packages to tell fuller stories.
Pac is pissed off. Newsflash. He asks who made Ospreay the number one contender for the American title. He says he should be, or he is the number one contender because he did win the match. But Ospreay went behind his back, got the match at Wembley. I'm sick of this crap and being overlooked, manipulated, and treated like a bum. That title match was my ticket to my Wembley moment. But it doesn't matter because I will face the winner 2 weeks later at All Out, September 7th in Chicago, the same arena where I beat Kenny Omega 5 years ago. Now get out of my face.
Yeah. So this was a promo very much leaning towards Will Ospreay, of course. So I think that might tip their hand at who will probably win that match. As I think we're all expecting Wembley out of Wembley. So I think we could probably say Pac versus Ospreay at All Out. And I don't know, Pac really feels like the odd man out this year because last year he was not on the Wembley card. This year he's perfectly healthy, but he has zero storyline and therefore no reason to have a match.
You know what they can do? For this one, and this is me, just pure guess, is Pac can go into this show, and they're kind of doing this with Saraya as well. Like these two, like the two Brits that want their big moment at Wembley Stadium, and they don't have opponents. And at least for Pac, like
They should face each other.
Exactly, mixed tag. Or you could just have Pac come out there and issue the open challenge, and that's your Moxley spot for the show.
That's not a bad idea.
You don't need any kind of build up for it. Moxley is like he's got time off, and
But do you have Mox lose that match if Pac's challenging for the championship?
I'd argue Pac should win that match.
Yeah, and Moxley can afford the loss. I don't dislike that.
And it also does tie into that All Out match that was supposed to be Omega and Moxley, and then Moxley was hurt and couldn't do it, and Pac took his spot on that show.
Okay. If they really want to fit him on that show,
I'm just saying, for someone
that
that you don't need a build-up for and is a big name that you would think you would want on this Wembley card, like that is one direction you could go.
He's also, of course, a guy who is probably losing his two stablemates. So, Pac has definitely built a name for himself as somebody who delivers like high quality every time he's in the ring. I still get excited for his matches, but I do find it hard to get invested in any sort of like title run potential from him because I don't think he's been in any sort of significant character based storyline over the past 5 years in this company. He's just kind of he's a good wrestler. And I hope to see him evolve beyond that at some point.
Darby Allin video. He talked about killing himself on the indies for $25-$50 a night. Then he heard about AEW while he was homeless, living in his car, and heard that this company had signed Jack Perry. And his thought was, who the hell is Jack Perry? And that's when he realized AEW is a bunch of guys hiring their friends because Jack Perry didn't have to sacrifice much, and said, now you're at least being your real self because no one believed your Tarzan bullshit. Now you are who you really truly are, a child. I kill myself every week and I don't take this for granted. And he wishes that Jack Perry got fired last year for all his bullshit because no one would miss you if you had gotten fired, and asks, what has Jack Perry added to AEW?
I thought he was going a little bit too hard on poor little Jack Perry here. I mean,
well, he got his comeuppance moments later because he came out for what we don't know. He was just walking out into the arena, and Jack Perry flies up the ramp and drills him with a knee and takes Darby to the back, tosses him into the equipment, and then lowers the garage, trapping Darby. And he grabs another equipment box on wheels and is about to run it into his head when, thank God, the security stopped this stunt because I'm sure he would have just said, yeah, just drill me. And then Jack Perry has called for a coffin match at All In. Yeah. You know there's going to be glass. I mean,
glass coffin. Real glass.
A real glass coffin.
Okay. Yes. Hey, it's the 1 year anniversary from a very
what a wonderful anniversary for this company to celebrate.
They can't help themselves. They will do it.
Yeah. How many cameras are they going to have set up backstage at this show?
Well, I think the match will go into Gorilla, and you'll get it. It'll start in Gorilla.
CCTV camera, closed caption. Well, Darby was killed, and that's what we got the setup for the.
Yeah, it's a good step. Match. Yeah, this show doesn't really have like a big, I guess, sort of like hardcore stipulation type of match on it yet. So yeah.
Our film by Mariah May. She says how Toni Storm failed at All In last year, and May copies her successes, but not her failures. And we see her lighting her old Toni Storm gear on fire, and says that people will forget about Toni Storm after All In, and one day they're going to wonder whatever happened to Toni Storm. And says not to worry because we both get to die, but I get to write your eulogy.
Mm-hmm. I thought this was excellent. I've been so impressed by her transformation from like, timid sidekick to this like super confident villainous lead. I'm impressed at how much of the non-wrestling side of things she's already figured out, given her age and just like relative lack of experience doing TV wrestling. I thought she had some great lines. I thought she delivered them incredibly well, and I thought the video was very, very, very well produced. So this is, to me, by far the best women's program that is heading to All In.
I think they hit such a high with the turn. Like, that angle was fantastic. And I think, the next week they had the promo where Mariah May came out, and I think that was a bit tough. The sit down with Renee, I think we both agreed, was like pretty awkward. To me, the best thing they have done was actually this recap they put on their social media, just going through the whole feud, and it was just edited so well. It's like 2.5 minutes. It was great. I think the struggle has been since the turn. It's not so much Mariah May, although you have seen her like in these, she's been more the focus, but I feel we do really need something from Toni Storm next week going into it. And I think it needs to be more than just the crazed character that she's been playing all in black. You can't play it straight with Toni Storm, but I think you do need a variation from what we've seen since the turn with her just doing these random attacks. And I think you have to hit that larger note that you had there at the turn and go into the show strong.
I think the struggle has been evident, and I think they found their most success by having Storm play a pretty straightforward, pissed off babyface, just seeking revenge and not doing that much talking. I think when she starts talking and doing a gimmick, like speaking in I don't know, whatever sort of like film language she's trying to replicate, that's when I think the suspension of disbelief kind of dissipates. So I personally don't mind if she keeps things more like physical and violent rather than with too much acting, I should say. I think they need to deliver like a big physical angle next week, and maybe even it's Toni Storm drawing blood and delivering like a big sort of like rah line to send you to the pay-per-view. They just have like one more, segment to really kind of take us there.
Well, Renee is with Mina Shirakawa, who has come over to be in the middle of this whole program. And she said she has had no contact with Toni Storm or Mariah May, and she is broken up over what has happened between these two. She can't believe they are the same people. And Renee asks, who's going to win at Wembley Stadium? And she says, Renee, I just hope no one's going to get seriously injured. So do you know what role Mina Shirakawa was playing?
What's that?
Diana Hart before Wembley.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like this, she just doesn't want anyone to get seriously hurt. This is Diana Hart in the middle.
Interesting.
Between two people that she has ties with.
Do you think that these are the deliberate references?
I felt this promo was totally like a playoff of like Diana's role in the middle of that. Like
that is very fascinating. So what does that mean for Toni versus Mariah May?
It means that who's Davey and who's Brett is your question of the two.
So I guess if the Brit is Mariah May, but she's also the heel in the match.
I wonder if Toni Storm has a Leo Burke finish in mind to use for the finish.
I wonder, but this is very fascinating. Yeah, you just kind of taken my interest a higher level with Mina Shirakawa's involvement. I wasn't even sure if like she would be even at the match involved in some way, or if this was just like a convenient way to get an appearance from her. But it looks like maybe it's leading to something more. And
I think you don't even have to wait till the pay-per-view. This could even be a great angle next week. Is that Mariah May takes out Mina Shirakawa with the shoe. And I think that would be the angle. I think that would be more surprising to people. And it's like Mariah May cuts her ties with Mina Shirakawa, leaves her bloody next week.
That would be a great angle. Yes.
Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly. The winner gets to enter the Casino Gauntlet match first at All In. And this was incredible. Like this, man, this was just such a well-worked three-way match where it was just, it wasn't like sometimes you just work in all these like cute spots, and they were just doing stuff at like such a crazy pace, and it all made sense. And it was like, okay, one guy got out of the way, doesn't matter, you're my target as well. Like there was none of this like miscommunication spots. It was just three guys trying to destroy one another to get this elusive number one entrance into the Casino Gauntlet. So some great stuff in here. Kyle uses a guillotine on Roderick as Cassidy comes off with an elbow drop to break it up. Bennett and Taven come down with a chair, and they get stopped by Ishii and Mark Briscoe. And Briscoe leaps off the chair, diving onto both on the floor, and they fight them to the back. Texas Cloverleaf is applied by Roddy onto Cassidy when Kyle stops that, and Cassidy picks up with the kicks, double Hurricane Rana, and then there's an armbar heel combo by Kyle onto both men. Orange breaks that up with a PK to Strong, and then Kyle O'Reilly suplexes Strong into an armbar, but leaves his back open for Cassidy to take it with a crucifix, catching Kyle, his conglomeration teammate, in 15:56. So Cassidy will enter number one. I would howl if these are number 2 and number 3 in the gauntlet.
Interesting. This match was awesome.
This was the match of the show.
They could have just put this on Wembley, and I think it would have stood a chance of being a match of the night on that pay-per-view, honestly. Outstanding wrestling throughout. Good display of character dynamics between the three of them, given like their current and past relationships. Creative three-way spots. Just, I mean, any really match involving any of these three in the middle of a Dynamite tends to be one of the highlights of the show.
Yeah, spectacular match. Mm-hmm. Renee hosts the big face-to-face backstage with Kazuchika Okada and Claudio Castagnoli. Claudio says the international title was my title, and he was disappointed he lost a Continental Classic, but he's going to win it on the first Dynamite in Europe. So for those that missed it, they are doing this match in Cardiff next Wednesday. Okada listens to this. Nice speech. You're very passionate. And he says, I'm the greatest tournament wrestler of all time, a 4-time G1 winner, and I will continue to be the champion after the Continental Classic. So good luck, bitch. And Okada walks off, and Claudio is not done. He says, I don't want that version of Okada. I want the true Rainmaker, the Tokyo Dome main event version of Okada, because I'm bringing my best. Okada, you better be ready. Because in Wales, you'll have 99 problems, and this bitch will be number 1.
Ooh.
Oh, my goodness.
Lovely, lovely. Maybe Tony will buy the rights to that one, too.
You know what? Let's just, you get that WBD money.
Yeah.
Minus a $9 billion impairment charge. Go after Jay-Z.
Sure. I feel like this is the most we've heard Okada speak while delivering an English promo, and I thought he did a great job of maintaining that like very hilarious, sarcastic personality throughout all of his verbiage here. They've just found a great voice for him, and he's found a great voice for this current character that just is great. And despite what Claudio says, like I'm actually a big fan of this version of Okada, so I'll take this guy. He also seems to indicate that he will be a participant in this year's Continental Classic. I don't sense that he was just saying that to say that he'll face the winner of the tournament. I think he's going to be actively, I guess, relinquishing the championship for the tournament, and then he's saying he'll win it back after going through the tournament. So, yeah, Okada is great. I think I think Claudio has made like tremendous strides, but I also think I think he tries too hard to sound like a serious promo, and I don't know. I think there's a little bit of fun that I think he needs to inject into some of these. And maybe today was a start.
Yeah, I was going to say 99 problems doesn't qualify as fun for you?
That was definitely fun, yes. He needs to maybe add a yodel in there, here and there.
Maybe he's waiting for next week. He'll break out some Swiss Beats or something.
Yeah, I wonder. Sure. Maybe a DMX. Arf, arf.
That's Braun's gimmick. Then Renee is with the Patriarchy, and Christian Cage says the collision match, he called it down the middle. They couldn't answer the 10 count. That's on them. I'm using this title as a vehicle back to the AEW title. In fact, I'm going to hold every single title at the same time in AEW. Christian explains that Nick Wayne will take on Kip Sabian on Rampage, but Cage is not showing up. And Renee asks, is that because you can't make it or because you're concerned? And Cage flips out on Renee about this and says, and kicks her off the set and says, "Go be a mom. You're probably a worse mom than you are an interviewer." This crowd was very offended by this, by Christian Cage.
So what do you think? We're getting this 3-way at All In or not?
I'm predicting several 3-ways to come at All In. Yes, that's my thought. Cut to Tony Schiavone, who says, "Well, Cage, we don't want you here in Virginia." And that got a bit of a pop. And then it's Hook.
Does that work?
No, it doesn't.
No?
I don't. I get what they're trying to do. It feels a little forced.
Somebody has to take it. So why not Hook?
Well, I guess it's Hook then. Out comes one-eyed Hook. Call him Captain Hook. And he is selling the effects of the fireball. Says he can't see out of this eye when Tony asks him, how's your eye doing? But I can see out my other eye. And he wants Jericho and an FTW title shot tonight. So Jericho and the Learning Tree come out, calls Hook a stupid son of a bitch. And Jericho turns him down. He says, "It's not worth my time. But what is worth my time is Wembley Stadium. So I'll face you at Wembley. But 2 conditions. Number 1, it's your last shot at the FTW title. And number 2, you have to face Big Bill in Cardiff next week." And Big Bill promises to shove Hook up Taz's ass. And Hook accepts and tells Jericho that after Wembley, he will never, ever be the same again.
Mm-hmm. On this show, you got to hear a lot of people spend a bit more time on the microphone, and I thought Hook was one of those. He cut a pretty substantial promo for a Hook promo, and I thought he demonstrated pretty good ability here to project and sound a bit more dynamic with his delivery than we've seen in the past. For the first time, I felt like I could sense a bit of his dad's abilities and his dad's voice in his promo, which is a very good thing. So I think I'm sensing improvement from Hook on the microphone.
Yeah, just don't take those catchphrases.
Which one?
Any of them.
Well, I think he's got great catchphrases.
I'm saying Taz's.
Yeah.
Well, I know he knows they're great catchphrases in there.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, you
Registered,
don't think he'll maybe he'll cut his son a
maybe.
deal. Okay?
He'd give him a discount, but not clearance. So there you go. Fine setup for the match. One-eyed Hook versus Two-Eyed Jericho. The Young Bucks against the Acclaimed for the tag titles are next. They went 18 minutes for this one. The Acclaimed jumped them on the stage and end up with Bowens leaping off the stage onto both Bucks. And then Daddy Ass comes down for a giant pop. And this was also a way around the rap, which I think they're just trying to distance Caster away from, it feels like.
Well, they're playing a much more serious version of themselves, and I think that would help. I mean, unless, of course, it's
going to be tough because to do a normal entrance, like it's going to take a while where I think the crowds are going to boo if they don't get a rap. Like that's kind of part of the show with them if they want to get away from that permanently.
Unless they just they're so angry, they just got to charge and figure out different ways.
Or change up their music, like change the presentation so fans are less apt to expect it because you hear that music and it's the time for
There's
for the
a way,
rap.
I think, to do the rap, but to do it in a more serious way. But maybe
it's the exact same thing they had to do with Cena when they changed his music, was to get away from the rap character.
Yep.
So they got the heat on Caster for a long period of time, and then they got the heat on Bowens for a long period of time, and we would just exchange hot tags. Caster's in, hits the sling blade, and then does the Tanahashi air guitar, and then Nick took a Dung Bucks sign and tore it up. You know that this fan probably had been working on that for months.
But probably the proudest moment of that fan's life.
What rhymes with young? I'm going with the Dung Bucks. Yes, because they're like shit. But what if they don't get it? I need emojis on it too. I don't want anyone to be confused by this.
Hey, the emojis add a lot, okay? This guy hit a home run with this sign.
Congratulations, sir. I assume it's a sir. So, tears up the sign. And then after the sling blade spot, Nick goes for a swanton, landing on Caster's knees as Matt takes Bowens from the apron and powerbombs him on the ramp. Rick Knox gets knocked down, so Max gets kicked low, and they grab a belt for the shot, but FTR appear. Dax yanks it away, and Matt Jackson spits into Dax's face. Oh, did you... y'all spitting in my face. I can't. My family would not approve of that. And Dax attacks Matt as the bell is called, and we get a DQ. The Acclaimed are pissed. Security are separating FTR from the Acclaimed as the Bucks smile at their successful title defense, and they retain the belts by DQ.
Yeah, I understand the booking here, but man, these DQs are very unusual for AEW.
Not so much anymore. They're getting much more part of the, accepted ways out of matches, which, they certainly don't have the reluctance they used to.
But this one coming after a 2 commercial break, 3 segment match, I thought was pushing it a little bit too far. I mean, I didn't even think the match was all that great to begin with. I thought it was pretty standard, to be honest, especially considering it was the Bucks here. I didn't find it all that engaging, and the booking just kind of made me turned off that much more. But I get it. You're trying to build to a 3-way, and you got to come up with ways to be creative like this.
Well, usually when you get through one of these, they're like, okay, well, you had to at least get through this to get to the booking. No, we got another match we got to go through, because then Christopher Daniels makes it FTR against the Acclaimed on Collision, and the winners will challenge the Young Bucks at All In.
Yeah, of course it's possible that I don't know, we get one.
No, they're going the time limit on Saturday.
Sure. Yeah, because I don't see them doing something at All In at this point without the Acclaimed. They put so much attention onto the Acclaimed. I also don't see FTR not being involved, so I think we're getting a 3-way.
Can't the Young Bucks overrule this?
That's a great question for Chris Daniels, and for Tony Khan. I'm not sure. Do you think we get a stipulation added to any of these matches?
No DQ.
Yeah, okay.
You could get some kind of interference on Saturday's show, and that does necessitate a stipulation. I
think you get a stipulation. Shelton Mysterio here is saying that I think the 3-way trios match will be a stadium stampede for the trios titles. They are lacking in a stadium stampede,
sure.
So one of
Why
these
not?
tag matches could be a stadium stampede. Sure.
Throw that on there. Then it was time for the second best video of the week behind Raw Physics. It was time for Green Day to weigh in on Bryan Danielson's career. And we got
How much money has Green Day made off of this damn song just in the 2 months? 2 weeks.
2 weeks, dude.
Man.
Enough to really support this 20th anniversary of American Idiot promotion that they've been doing.
Oh, is that what that is?
This
song wasn't off of. This song wasn't off of.
This was off Nimrod, but they are actively promoting the 20th anniversary of American Idiot. So
right, okay.
Green Day is all over the place. They need
some money.
I don't think there's any band that has capitalized more off their library with constant re-releases and anniversaries than Green Day. They're very on top of that stuff.
The Beatles have
the
done
Beatles
a pretty good job of
pretty
that
up
too.
there too. I'm saying, well, at least contemporary. So, I mean, this was great. They mixed in a lot of AEW and ROH footage here, along with the Wrestling Road Diaries stuff that I think was actually the most sentimental stuff in this video. And an interesting little note is that you had Danielson and Colt Cabana featured here in this video from Wrestling Road Diaries, and working a dark match tonight was Sal Rinauro, who was the third man in that first Wrestling Road Diaries. He lost to Satnam Singh in a dark match tonight.
Interesting. Is that so?
So you had all of them there under one roof. There was some interesting stuff in this. If you were watching closely, they did isolate a shot of him and Nigel in the ring together, shaking hands. And you had to get around the fact of no WWE footage, even though they did manage. I don't know if they revoiced this or how they got it, but the famous "If you fight for your dreams will fight for you" line, which was inserted here. But this was a great video.
It might have been from when he recapped. Maybe he recapped that line in one of his AEW promos. I don't know.
Maybe he played the hits in another promo.
Yeah. But this was a great video.
It was awesome.
And again, the second one, the second sort of extended, video package we had on this edition of Dynamite that I think just provided tremendous value in making this match feel big. And again, this
and I think this video, sorry to interrupt, but you watch this video, I think this is going to sell a lot of people on. This might really be his last match. I think the fact is Bryan Danielson is somebody that I think in the lead up to all of this, you don't know what is This guy is always so truthful, but when he is promoting stuff, like, you don't know what is what, and the idea that this could be his last match, I think, is going to sink in with a lot of people in these last 10 days, and I think this video really hit it home for people.
I think he and they have done a great job of creating the sort of believability of the stipulation being the actual final match of Bryan Danielson's career. He's been doing a lot of interviews over in the UK. He did the Bellas podcast, and like he basically kind of like, spends a lot of time.
He's not retiring from Bella Brains hosting, is he?
Oh, I think that's his full-time gig after this. Yeah,
he's got to promise his daughter he will continue Bella Brains.
That's right. But the interviews like largely consist of him giving his reasons for why he's going to be stopping. He's got a lot more injuries than he was expecting to have at this point in his career. He wants to be at home a lot more often because his daughter is at an age right now where she constantly wants to be around his father, and he realizes that that's not going to last. And then you have a video like this, which like essentially is his retirement video, his Hall of Fame speech induction video that they decided to show in the lead up before this match. So they're doing a great job of doing everything they can to convince you that Danielson could be retiring on in 2 weeks' time.
Maybe this is the 2024 equivalent of Lex Luger coming out in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania on the final tapings before WrestleMania 10, wearing the title as a swerve that he was going to win the title at WrestleMania 10.
That's a very specific
Next
example.
week on Rewind-A-Way, we will talk about WrestleMania 10.
Very
but check out this video. It was really, really well done. Swerve Strickland and Wheeler Yuta in the main event. They only got like 9 minutes or so, and this was with the overrun. I'm really curious if that tag match went heavy, because this was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. Swerve gets into, first of all, Bryan Danielson. I don't know if we have a category for wrestlers sitting in the crowd. In terms of wrestling adjacent personalities in the crowd, no one's topping Sami Zayn's wife, but Bryan Danielson is number 2. He was the most amazing, concerned friend in the front row, and they just constantly cut to him. He's concerned for Yuta. He's cheering him on. He's getting the crowd to cheer for Yuta. I mean, this guy was just spectacular in this role.
He's very good. Yeah, to me, like the standard is Helen Hart in that role. But yeah, Danielson does a good job of it. Yeah.
So Swerve immediately takes Yuta, puts him right into Danielson's face, and tells Danielson, "I'm going to retire you." And he's beating on Yuta. Yuta finally gets a reversal and off of a powerbomb and hits a Rana and an elbow suicida. And then Yuta leaps off the top, and he is caught in Swerve's version of the label lock. Yuta breaks out of it, and Shivani says this line where he's like, Yuta might have just taught Danielson a counter to the label lock. And I think that's like a really interesting story that they can play, is that Yuta unexpectedly taught Swerve how to escape the label lock. And that can play into the match, where if Swerve breaks out of that label lock, I am confident that that is not by mistake, and that this had a cool little tie-in to this match, that Yuta, who's been training extensively with Danielson on that hold, along with the cattle mutilation, might have just taught Swerve how to get out of the hold.
It was like an oddly like good bit of like actual in-ring analysis from Tony Schiavone, who like isn't really in his role because of that, but he gave it. And Taz, like, I don't think it really registered with any of the other announcers because they just kind of blew it off.
I thought it was like the best detail like in this whole match, that I was like, that's a really cool element to just, it's like, it's another layer in this match to watch for, that you can explain it. So Yuta hits this big slap. Swerve just smiles at him, headbutts Yuta, and hits the house call. And then we get one more time by this crowd, who they just want to see these baby faces die in wrestling. And he hits a second house call, a third house call, and then he takes Yuta by the wrists and starts stomping him down and finishes him on top with ground and pound as the referee calls it off. Yuta is out, so Danielson hops the rail and comes to check in on Yuta. And Swerve says, "That's an example of what I'm going to do to you, Bryan," and asks, "Are you bringing your family to Wembley? Because I'm going to mutilate you right in front of your daughter so you can fulfill that promise to her to retire. Because I'm going to force you to retire, and I'm going to cripple you." And Taz explains, that's the C word. You don't use that word. It's like he broke the code. And so Danielson is left alone with Yuta. You think Swerve has gone to the back, but he runs back into the ring for a house call to Danielson and then slowly does the yes sign to this crowd. A fantastic end to this show. If I'm going to like quibble a little, and maybe this is a little hypocritical of me when I've said like blood is not my preferred method all the time, but for a company that has shown such an embrace for this fluid to just run freely. Mm-hmm. When you're 10 days out from the biggest show of the year, I thought this was a time, I think, where blood would have been absolutely acceptable for Yuta to get massacred here and Danielson to come to his aid, and that's one of our closing shots. But nonetheless, still a very effective segment here. And I thought tonight's show, these last like 25 minutes of the show, did a real great job between the Green Day video and this of really pushing this as a very big match for next weekend.
Yeah, I thought this was awesome. I really enjoyed this match, meaning it wasn't the match of the show, but as far as like I think how productive it was.
Might have been the most effective match of the show.
It was an extremely productive match to elevate my interest in the match and to build Swerve Strickland's character as this incredibly vicious, mean champion. Swerve to me is at the peak of where this character is right now. I think he's completely regained that lost edge he had since becoming champion and flirting with being a bit more of a sort of pure babyface. He's, by being mean and being allowed to play heel essentially in a match like this, he's found that great edge again that he had at the peak of the Hangman Page feud. I think this is Swerve at his very best, It's and I don't find any of it out of character. Like the way he's explained it in storyline, like he's driven by being the best, and he knows that he's at his best when he is the most aggressive and when he's violent and when he's making threats to get under his opponent's skin by threatening his families and threatening to cripple him using the C word. So I think after this, like, I don't think it's incongruent with the Swerve we just had for Blood and Guts, for instance. I don't think it'll be incongruent when Swerve bounces back to being a babyface after this feud, because this is all fair in war. He just he's doing everything he can to promise to win because he wants to be the best. I thought this was like a great Yuta, using Yuta, this was a great way to kind of exhibit that side of Swerve. And I do truly feel like this outcome is hard to predict, and so much of that is because Danielson's done such a great job to convince us that this could be it. The video today added a whole lot to it, and there really is no more perfect stage to, have a retirement than a Wembley Stadium. At the same time, there's no better stage to have a great moment for Danielson to win than Wembley Stadium. So it really is hard to predict for me.
The only thing they need is next Wednesday, Cardiff, Wales, go home segment, face-to-face, Bryan Danielson and Rick Ross.
I think you save that for Wrestle Dream or, some maybe next year's All.
That's my Wrestle Dream.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rick Ross. I thought this Dynamite was great. I just thought they did such a great job of building up All In. As I said, I thought after these 2 hours, this felt like the big show of the year. They did a outstanding job with the main event. It was a great utilization of Wheeler, and I thought that up and down the show, like the three-way and Hangman and Jay Lethal, and I thought Mercedes and Hikaru, like, you had some really good wrestling on this show, but you had some really great video packages and other elements building up to All In. That I thought this was a very strong show.
I was really impressed with the use of video packages in this, and making both, I would say, both co-main events feeling really big in MJF and Ospreay, and also Swerve versus Danielson. I think Mariah May and Toni Storm was helped by a great video from Mariah May. And yeah, like it's shaping up to be a nice looking card. They're filling out the rest here with some tag team matches, some 3-ways to come, multi-man tags. I'm sure I'm expecting some stipulations to make some of those matches feel a bit more exciting. But
we're going live Monday afternoon after this show ends.
So we're up to 8 matches so far, including the kickoff match with Statlander and Hathaway versus Willow Nightingale and Tomohiro Ishii. How many more matches do you think get added?
Oh, I'm going to predict we hit 13.
13, okay. That's probably a fair estimate. You know, we at least have a couple more tag matches.
But we still have the tag title match, the trios title match, something with Pac. They've been building something with Saraya as well. Maybe that's the kickoff, but regardless, she's going to be on this card.
The gauntlet also wasn't listed here.
Oh, the gauntlet's not listed, so that brings you up to 9. So, I think 13 is like that's the vicinity of one of these big AEW shows. All right, it's late, but we are going to get to some super chats and feedback from the forum.
We got one super chat here very early on, so thank you. Hopefully this person is still watching us and waiting. If not, I hope they're listening after the fact. TT Dynamite sends $20 to say, hey guys, I'm a longtime fan. I'm getting married this Friday, so with time off work, I'm finally able to jump into one of these live streams. Just wanted to thank you guys for all the content over the years. Congratulations.
Wow, I'm honored that you're going to have Rewind to SmackDown streaming at your wedding on this Friday, I assume. But
I think they're gonna play the first. They're gonna have their first dance to our theme song.
How much better could you kick off a marriage than with that song? Well, congratulations, TT Dynamite, and thank you so much for listening all these years.
That's some great news. Just in time for All In with your wife.
Let's see if anyone can top that one. Andrew from Cape Breton writes, one thing I love about AEW is how Dynamite flies by. When they announced there wouldn't be any more commercial, that's right, with like 20 minutes left till 10 o'clock, they said like no more commercial. So we got like 25 minutes uninterrupted, maybe even longer than that, at the end of the show.
Curious to know how that plays out with the quarter hours.
That's a great question. Collision on Saturday. It was only a 2-minute overrun, but man, they saw a big jump in those 2 minutes on Collision as well. Yeah, that will be interesting to see with the elimination of a commercial break at the end instead of usually you get that at the front portion of the show. So he goes on to say, when they went to Swerve and Yuta, I thought it was weird they were going to have the main event go long, and then I realized it was 10 minutes to the top of the hour. So as you can imagine, I enjoyed the show. Usually I hate DQ finishes after long matches. I like to call them Vince finishes. But the tag title match was one of the few times the losing team was mad that the DQ happened, which helped. I also enjoyed Moné and Shida. I'm hoping they get a longer match on pay-per-view as I feel they have a lot more in them. Another thing I like about AEW is guys can go in and out of being babyface and heel. Swerve is leaning heel, but his character has not changed. I like how it's being used against Bryan Danielson too, as the BCC also tends to go between heel and babyface. Lastly, major G1 contest news. In order for me to get last place, Jesus Carrera has to get 5 points on the final B block day, and I would tie him as I got 2 points for day 16. Everyone under me would have to get 4 points. Okay. Thanks for putting the G1 contest together. I was definitely the Blue Jays this year. Okay, well, Andrew, we're rooting for you to finish dead last in the G1 contest. Tune in Monday to find out. We will make sure to we will go through the top 5 and we'll also go through the bottom 5. How about that?
We might even hear from Chris Angler. So again, thank you, Chris Angler.
We don't know the finishing, the placement, so
yeah,
we're in the dark.
All right, let's go to Brian in New Jersey, who says a strong episode before they head to Great Britain next week as more pieces fall into place for All In. Really effective end to the show. I'll have to go to the scorecards to see who used Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, more effectively. I might have to give the edge to that movie just because it may not be Good Riddance for Danielson. That heavy heel work from Swerve now has me thinking Danielson will prevail at All In, win the title for the big happy moment, and then later drop it in Tacoma. I also really enjoyed Moné versus Shida, Hangman versus Lethal, and the three-way, and Claudio said what a lot of fans have been thinking about Okada. I haven't been thinking that. I've been loving this Okada, but
there's been some that have not enjoyed the more jovial Kazuchika Okada, but
please. Nice speech is all I have to say about that. Question: given how Konosuke Takeshita could be a few knees and elbows away from the G1 Climax finals, he'll have to get a bigger spotlight when he returns to AEW, right?
I mean, it's like I don't think he's squandered in AEW. I think he's been the victim of the stuff like with Kenny Omega going down and with just the different changes that they had to pivot around from. Like he's in a good spot, but I think this G1 has been it's a recognition that this guy could be the franchise player in New Japan, and AEW's got this guy. So yeah, it's a loaded company that AEW has, but this guy's in the elite of that roster. And I think that's more so just a reminder to people of how versatile this talent is. And more so to that, it's the charisma he brings about with his matches as well that he has. Like, he just has such a unique blend of all of this that it can work in a New Japan ring, it can work in a DDT ring, and it can work in North America too. Like, he had that that skill set that I think translates effectively. So we will see. I hope he gets some kind of a spotlight, but I mean, they haven't made the tournament any kind of a factor on AEW programming, at least. Next one is Cody from Maine. I saw a series of tweets from Rob Viper on Twitter that I wanted your thoughts on. He said he's never seen the Young Bucks be as cold of an act as they are now. Do you agree with that statement? And if so, is there a direction you can see them going to regain momentum? Or are they in a Jericho-like pattern where they could possibly use an extended break from TV to reset, but they make too much money to justify such a break? I don't think they need a break. I think what they need is a break from this story that they're tied to, that I don't so much see it as... I'm not a fan of this story. I think it has been poorly put together. I think it's been poorly explained, and it sort of just feels like it's dragged on without any progression, and there's just these giant holes in the story that don't allow me to have any kind of engagement in it. And I think they've just been dragged down by the story. I don't think this is like some reason that the Young Bucks are not an effective act on television, but I do feel this whole story has been really bungled for a variety of reasons. And it doesn't have to be. Like, this just needed some more clear explanation to make sense, and it doesn't. And it's introduced a lot of the elements that I think people were most negative about WWE with, that they've embraced, and at the same time when WWE has turned that stuff away from their programming too.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was potential with the characters and with the storyline. I think it was even in fact like met with like pretty good reception maybe the first few weeks that they debuted the characters. But it's just kind of been in this sort of like, weird space of like this it's sort of like so unrealistic. It's been unclear just given the power dynamics. All of that needs to be cleaned up, and we need to have a definitive moment where things are finally put up so that their power will be lost or gained, or whatever. Some definitive moment, put it all on the line in a match that we can actually look towards as some form of direction for where all of this might actually end. I think there's still a good chance that you'll build interest for it. I'm also curious, do you think we'll see the Lucha Brothers at all on AEW TV between now and whenever they might be making their exit?
Well, I think that's ultimately the determining factor if they are going to exit. If they are, you could bring them back for, to write them off. Because
I think there's potential for one last program with the Bucks, especially given their EVP statuses, to write the Lucha Brothers off in some way. And that I think will, has potential to be an interesting storyline. Now, like, I guess the question is, do you want to give that publicity to the Lucha Brothers on their way out? I don't know, but
it's not going to matter. You can keep them off TV, or you can put them on TV. They're going to get a monster reaction going in, and they're going to be totally renewed going to WWE. There's also, I think, like, you're biding your time until Kenny's ready to come back, because you have that outstanding angle, and that's something that sometimes AEWs has got caught in. Adam Cole's another example where it's like you're prolonging these character runs while you're waiting for someone to get healthy. And with MJF, they kind of had to cut bait on it. And with the Young Bucks, I think a lot of your audience is ready for it too, even though you shot that big angle with Kenny and it's a ready-made program when he can come back.
Sure. Yeah. All right, let's go up next to Matthew England, who says, this is probably the best show AEW has done in terms of pure build and getting me excited for Wembley. It was a great flow, and all of the segments had meaning. The Danielson video package was some incredible work on what has been a very strange build to the Wembley match, one that I'm not even sure at times that the company knows what the angle is. First, Danielson is doing media interviews saying he doesn't want the title. Then he goes through the Owen and wins it all, but he's still reluctant to take his shot. It was also strange Swerve was talking with Jim Ross, and Jim Ross said it was Danielson's last match, win or lose. Maybe he misunderstood the angle. And now Danielson is telling JR he's having neck issues and needs surgery by year's end. Is this some kind of 4D chess that's going over my head? If they're trying to work the smart fans, it's not working for this guy and just convoluting things. Having said all that, I'm sure the match will be one for the ages. For what it's worth, I don't buy for a second that Danielson isn't winning this match. Do we know if MJF is in the building tonight? Very strange that he's not physically on the show since Brett is back.
I don't know. He wasn't on the show, so
He also did travel to London or wherever RevPro.
yeah,
happened.
he
So.
just went there to London over the weekend as well. So I mean, he may not have been needed at the show as well. But I don't know. I don't know if he was there or not. In terms of the Danielson stuff, I mean, all that stuff. I think Danielson does think at that level, and I think is trying to think like multiple steps ahead, which I think sometimes can be you're overthinking your stories and angles for your audience. But I mean, in this case, I think it's I don't think people necessarily take what he's saying in a worked interview with Jim Ross as legitimate or not. Like, he may need neck surgery. He's not lying, but is he planning to have it right after this match or immediately, to be determined. I think all of that is designed to throw the outcome into question so that if he wins, it's shocking, and if he loses, it's a monumental moment.
Yeah, I think the whole selling point of this is that can they convince you that this is going to be Danielson's retirement match? And if it's not, will it be his first championship win inside a major stadium? Both of those things I think they're doing a great job of promoting. So it's working for me.
One more is from Muggin, who says that Mercedes and Shida was solid despite the egregious referee lapse of judgment with Camille. After today's G1 show, that was hardly egregious. The Mariah May vignette was very strong, and it's adding on top what is arguably the best women's storyline AEW has ever done. Elsewhere, the Bucks acclaimed FTR horse race over the tag titles left me cold. Collision better not do another non-finish back-to-back weeks. Yes, it's their last weekend in Arlington, Texas this Saturday with FTR against the Acclaimed. Also coming up this weekend, worth noting, it's a very busy week of shows because we've got the last Collision in Arlington. We've also got the third of 3 Triple Mania events happening on Saturday in Mexico City, where, among other things, Vampiro, part of his retirement tour, is taking on TBA in a casket match. That's going to be something.
The very popular TVA. Mm-hmm.
3 G1 shows, and we have UFC 305 on Saturday night, so it's a very busy weekend coming up. So you can follow along with everything at postwrestling.com. Thursday, we're back. Postwrestlingcafe.com, myself and Wade going through the quarterfinals of the G1, and then Friday we have Rewind to SmackDown, and then more coming up this weekend, including Sunday night. The NWA podcast is back with Nate, Chris, Andrew, and Ray.
Hey, and almost forgot to mention, our friends at Poison Rana are having an all-in watch party. If you're in the Toronto area, they are going to be at Wide Open, our new favorite bar in Toronto, Wide Open, and that is 139 A Spadina Avenue on August 25th at noon. So if you're in the Toronto area looking to watch All In with other wrestling fans, consider going to Wide Open. It's a very tiny bar, and the atmosphere is wonderful, and because it gets packed with wrestling fans very easily. So I would suggest that you get your tickets earlier than later.
It's a great place to catch All In, and maybe you can do some karaoke, do some good Riddance or Machine Head. Just get that 90s mix going.
Give those artists more money.
Yeah. I mean, if he comes out to Europe at Wembley, which you would think,
yeah.
How expensive is this promotion of Bryan Danielson going to cost?
Justifiably expensive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it was probably a very green day for Billy Joe Armstrong when he looked at his deposits. All right. That's it for us. Thanks for staying up late with us for Rewind to Dynamite. We'll chat with you later this week.